Broadcasting live from the IRSMedic studios, it's Parental Advisory. Hey, thanks for joining us on Parental Advisory. Anthony, today we're taking a trip down memory lane.
I knew this day was going to happen.
It had to.
It had to. There's just some things you can only ignore for so long.
So on your personal YouTube channel, which you used for business purposes for a while.
Correct.
You created a video called 3 Things Never to Say to the IRS.
Right.
And we'd like to revisit that today.
Yes.
This was created and uploaded on June 15, 2009.
Right.
And it currently has 227,516 views.
Yeah, this is the one.
This
is
is
the
the one.
one. This is this video. It's really something else. I used to belong to a marketing group together, and it was something where, hey, if you do this, we'll help you present a video. And the idea was, you do this video, burn it to DVD, and then mail it to people who have a federal tax lien filed against them, and this will
Convince them
that, hey, I'm the guy for you. And it's kind of embarrassing now because as I look at it, it's incredible. I can't even watch the whole thing. It just makes me squirm so much. It was recorded in Denver in February of 2008 at a hotel in downtown Denver. It was a lot of fun. My dad and Taryn went. We had beautiful weather, and there's a few things that people who comment on the video. Is it going to get? It's going to be starting. Why don't you
run it, Chen?
Okay, we're going to be starting it now.
So this was your interviewer,
right? Who I never met in my life. I never saw that woman ever in my life until I got the produced video back. It was rather one of the assistants was prompting me the questions of the 3 things never to say to the IRS. Now, and there it is. I actually never met this woman in real life. And yes, we do call her the scary. There I am. Oh my God, I was so skinny back then.
Sideburns.
Yeah, those are called the douchebag sideburns. And I realized how much I look like my little brother here, who is a little bit skinnier. Oh my God, I look so young.
And like we say there, you're not reading from a teleprompter.
I am not.
Half of the commenters believe you are.
And there was a teleprompter down below. It was there. But Tarn and I were working on this. We rehearsed this so that I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to show everybody I was better than them, and I wouldn't need a teleprompter. But that's just the level of pride I have. And so Tarn and I practiced it, and I went in. I'm like, I don't need a teleprompter. I did a few ad-libbing too, put it in my own language. Taryn and I really worked on some things. And at this point, I was practicing law for 6 years. Didn't sound that impressive. So Taryn came up, say you're practicing for the better half of a decade.
Nice.
Huh? Taryn was my first hire. And no one can ever, surpass Taryn. And he's still with us.
So maybe I wouldn't say teleprompter, but maybe a little over practice.
A little over practice. Oh my God, I look like my brother. Oh my God, I look like him.
We'll have to we'll see if we can get a shot of Frank in there.
A shot of Frank.
All right, but what we realized as we watched this is that the message in the video is actually spot on.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Through this whole thing, it was sort of a cheesy marketing effort. But the copy, whoever wrote the copy for it, wasn't me. I didn't write.
Oh, you didn't?
No. I did ad-lib things here and there. And I read it, and I was like, hey, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, wow, what a great, this is exactly right. I wish I thought of this, and people think I did.
And now that you've been practicing a while, you realize just how...
It's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, all right, so it was a good program I belonged to. I mean, it was like, yeah, this is exactly right.
Yep.
So you ready for the 3 things?
3 things. Number 1.
Yeah.
Never voluntarily tell the IRS anything unless they've specifically asked you for the information. Only give them the information they asked for, nothing else. Don't attempt to curry favor with an IRS agent.
Now, can you do that without looking at your paper?
No, I have not practiced.
You haven't? Don't worry, people would think you're reading anyway.
That is true.
Doesn't matter. You know what? It just doesn't matter. And there you go. I love that one because people, will overshare all the time. And oversharing is a great way for someone to say, oh, you said this and this, let's lead to this. And I think this is maybe the unsaid thing through this, 3 things never tell the IRS. Look, man, the IRS is a complete threat to your life. Complete threat. They are not your buddy. They're not your pal. And people get confused far too easily. We have a president who says we're going to ask the rich to pay their fair share or pay a little bit more. You're not asking people to do a damn thing. You're telling them, do it or else I'll put you in jail. right? So we need to use language a little bit better. The IRS is a complete threat to your life. And the way things work doesn't really have much to do with reality. The way stories get fleshed out and what assumptions people will leap to based on very small pieces of evidence. And it's something that our human brain does, is we need to create narratives for pretty much everything in life. And this is something I always notice, that, when you look and you see the man on the moon, there's no man on the moon, but we're trying to see one, like, oh, that's kind of the eye and the face. And what is he sad or is he smiling? Something, not sure, but it's definitely a face. That's not a face. It's just a bunch of stupid craters. They're not doing a damn thing for you. That's what we do. And that's the same thing that anybody does. And when you're telling somebody a few little snippets, man, the mind just goes and fills in the holes, and they have the whole story figured out when they could be completely wrong. And that's why you don't overshare.
And don't overshare. Number 2, if they keep pressing you, you have the right to say nothing and have an attorney talk to them on your behalf. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, you do. You have that right. You do not have to talk to the IRS yourself. This is probably one people never do. They never say, wait a second, I'm going to back off and get help. Because people feel, this is something we notice. People feel this incredible pressure to explain something. That when your answer is, I don't know, that's not good enough. Well, why don't you know? Well, I don't know because at the time you're going in to explain the thing. Just say, I don't know.
I don't know.
Really? Are you stupid? I don't know.
And I think it's similar to a lot of the times people, I think, obviously would be more likely to use it if they're being questioned by the police, maybe not realizing they can do it with the IRS. But, I mean, it's not going to make you look guilty. I think that's a fear of a lot of people.
Well, you already look guilty. The problem you're being asked, you're being asked questions, you already look guilty. Now, are you going to give them enough statements to continue further? The thing that made you look guilty is getting arrested, and I think that's from Breaking Bad, which is a great quote. That's absolutely cracked me up when I heard that. People in criminal situations, people always talk too much, and we were just watching that YouTube video.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We're going to talk about that a little bit, and just sort of this why it's so ridiculous to do it. And I advised a client the other day, charge something. I'm like, shut up, don't do anything. And it feels like bad. Like you really, you're going to tell them not to say anything? Like they don't have a case. Shut up. Just shut up. And it will go away.
No one has ever talked themselves out of trouble. Maybe into trouble,
yes,
but not out of trouble. All right, number 3, should you stretch the truth a little bit?
Yeah, no, because it's always great to be caught in a little bit of lie that hangs you for something stupid. And a lot of times, people, when you're negotiating with the IRS to repay something, there's a financial statement, a collection information statement, a 433A, 433B. People have gone and lied on those, and because they thought whatever... the IRS, they couldn't work something with the IRS, so they went and lied on it, and they've done time. And the thing is you really don't need to. If you know the rules inside and out, and you know what you can kind of get away with being honest, as my older brother says, Anthony, you do a remarkable job of hiding the truth in plain sight.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay.
So
I'm honest.
Lying
right.
on a form and also lying to an IRS employee, both criminal offenses.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
You could be charged, you could be put in prison. So if you're not completely sure about something, you recommend to say...
Yeah, if you're not completely sure what the answer is or why the hell they're asking it, what do you mean by that? And this has happened, we just had a case where somebody was dealing with the IRS themselves, and it was basically a form he knew he had to file. But he was dealing with a brother who died and passed away, and he was going to get around to it. Right? And he got around to it a few months later, but they said, well, on this date it was due to be filed. So why didn't you file it? And he goes, I just couldn't be bothered. And so like, oh, buddy, you're in trouble now because you knew about that form that day. Regardless of the fact that you were going to file it a couple months later, we don't give a dang. Here it is. So there was a $25,000 mistake. We were able to get that down a little bit.
So that's basically because at that point it would be considered willful.
Right, because and you're using your own language. He didn't know. And if I was there, it's like, no, that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is, I knew about it. I didn't realize the time was that sensitive. I was going to get around to it. I knew about it. I was doing it. I was under a lot of pressure. I didn't realize it had to be done then. that would have been a much better answer, but he didn't know why they were asking it. And so he just goes in with, well, they can't be completely unreasonable, right? They're going to ask me to pay my fair share.
So you say you can't. You say I can't recall or I don't know.
Yeah, those are
and
the
I like
best
that.
answer.
I can't recall.
I don't know.
Because really, under pressure like that, sometimes you really can't remember every detail, and every
Right.
detail
And
is
you're
so
gonna,
important.
in every detail, the context of what you're saying. And people, the IRS is great at taking things out of context and putting a few things out of context to create a story that's false. And that's what happens. Happens in criminal proceedings all the time. I did a lot of criminal defense work, and all of the cases I had, there was something completely BS about the charge that was obvious once you looked through it. Now, I'm not going to say these guys I was representing were saints and didn't do other crimes. Not saying that, but I am saying that the crime that they were currently incarcerated for or were charged with was founded on some piece of BS. It was not true. We could show that, but it was too late. I dealt with, the confessions. Oh my God, the confessions. Shut up. You're saying something because, and I saw it's like I see what you're doing here. You're saying this because you think if you dump it on this guy, they're going to go easy on you. Or if you say this, they're like, okay, no.
Well, he tried.
They're going to cut and paste. Is there something incriminating? Okay, we're going to cut and paste that out of context to create an entirely different context.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to talk about is the video we touched on. Don't talk to police. We're not affiliated with this video,
Yes.
but you brought it up. It was very interesting. And it's a lawyer, an attorney, and he's teaching a classroom of people. I mean, it looked like there was probably 50, 60 people.
Yeah, it was a law school. I think he was an adjunct professor at a law school.
Yes.
Right.
And he was trying to give examples of how our language can really screw you. And I think it's the same with the IRS.
Yeah.
The example he gave was he read basically an article from the newspaper that morning about 3 people that were murdered. They were murdered. It was a gang murder, lots of blood everywhere.
Gangland style murder.
Yes,
That's what it
thank
was.
you.
That was the word that, yep.
Gave some details about the where, the when, and said, all right, everybody, pay attention to the details. He even gave him a warning.
Yes.
He said, pay attention to the details. I'm going to ask you about this in a little while. Maybe 15 minutes later, he goes back and he says, all right, everybody, now we're going to talk about this murder I told you about. He said, I'm going to give you multiple choice questions. How many people in this particular murder scene, how many of them were shot? Was it A0, B1, C2, or D3? And everybody was like, well, duh, 3. And he's like, no, I never, ever once said that anybody was shot.
Yeah.
And I'd say 60 or 70% of the people in that room raised their hands for 3.
And the thing is I watched the video because I posted it years ago on our blog. Like, man, what a great video. And I watched it again, and I'm like, oh, God, there's a trick. And I'm like, and I still answered the wrong question. I said 3. I was like, oh. I got burned again. Because that is how language trips you up. And it was the word that got me was gangland. That is the word I associated with, oh, yeah, it must have been guns. That was the word but gangs do a lot of things, right? I mean, gangs can strangle you with piano wire.
Right.
And that's actually, that's James Duane, a professor at Regent Law School. And it's such a fantastic video. And what I love in it is that, he doesn't let lawyers off the hook at all. No, he's like, you idiots, don't tell your clients, oh yeah, we'll cooperate. Cooperate. That's not the word you're looking for.
No.
It's surrendering, I think, is the word, and giving things, screwing your client over. No, we're not going to talk to you. There's nothing to be gained. If you have the evidence against me, okay. And that's really something that we see with the IRS on a lot of the offshore disclosures. Shut your mouth. If they have something on you, let them bring it up and prove it. Then they obviously have you. But you're the one, and you're squirming around, trying to come up with grasping for something to explain away, oh, why did I do that? Just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And there's a lot of things. It was up to, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, even that he gives a cop the opportunity to speak at the end of the lecture as well. And even the cop's like, yeah, people just tell us too much. And he's also the one that said, I've never seen anybody talk themselves out of trouble.
Yeah.
And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I will put a link to that video.
Yeah, you're more likely to talk yourself into trouble.
It's fantastic, and I think for any attorney required watching, because I actually needed to watch this myself to say, yeah, that's right. That's right. Shut up.
Yeah, there was an example he gave where somebody very innocent, Jim got killed. Oh my God, I had no problem with Jim. Jim's a great guy. I'm not violent. I've never even owned a gun. And they were like, how'd you know it was a gun?
Yeah.
When there was no evidence that he had been given. So it's like people just you get nervous and talk, and you're going to say too much to.
Oh, that's the thing. Yeah, right. You get nervous and talk.
And I think IRS agents might be a little more intimidating than some cops.
Because it's taxes.
It's your livelihood.
Right. And it's also taxes. And this is the thing that you probably don't know. Their knowledge of tax is probably this thin. Mm-hmm. It really is. And because you can't possibly, if you were trying to learn everything about tax, you wouldn't have time to do your job. At some point, you have to say, okay, that's good enough. I need to go process this case. So the thing is most IRS agents, where I think you find the most knowledgeable IRS employees is usually in the Office of Appeals, because they're bridging both worlds of administrative procedure and the litigation world. They tend to be the most knowledgeable people.
That makes sense.
And they're knowledgeable on collections and assessments.
Yep.
But usually when you're dealing with, a criminal investigator, they might be an ex-revenue officer, or they might just be a criminal science major. That could really be it. Wow. They could be an ex-FBI. What they know about what goes into accounting, and I won't say this, but my friend Michael Mins has said this, is they're just basically the losers in life who love the badge for the authority. I don't say that. Mm-hmm. I would never say such a thing. No. But I think really that don't think they know. Don't assume they know more than they do. People, oh wow, IRS X, and you see the ads, hire this ex-IRS employee, like they have the magic wand. They could have been working on this narrow, tiny issue, so small that the only place that their knowledge is actually helpful is at that job. Mm-hmm. They're no good on the outside because they were part of a huge team where your job is to review this little issue here. No knowledge of how the whole picture works, and so that's the thing. Like ex-IRS, maybe they're great.
Maybe they got fired.
Maybe they got fired.
Which is really hard to do.
Which is hard to do, right. But that doesn't tell you anything about their knowledge, ex-IRS. And, so look out for that.
Yeah. Now, what I want to talk about is three things never to say to the IRS Revisited. But especially when it comes to audits, what to do and what not to do. When people get audited, they sometimes freak out.
Yep.
And now, one of the most common ways the IRS will audit individuals is an audit by mail. That's a real thing. They will actually send you the information, and you just really sort of correspond by mail only. But if you are being audited in person, that's a bigger deal? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the IRS has very few field agents. They're able to do the core audit, CORR, much cheaper because it's at a campus, an IRS campus. Memphis is a huge place where a lot of core audits are conducted. They're able to pay lower wages there to do, you're paying Memphis wages to do an audit for someone in Manhattan. Okay, that's a pretty good, that's what you're looking for. It's also you're able to do, because everything's documented, you're able to have a lower level employee who's not going to command the salary. There are employment options outside of the IRS, especially in Memphis. Look, there's not a lot. There's not a lot of jobs in Memphis that are going to pay as well as the IRS is. I'm not going to say that Memphis is a lower level employee, but I would just say this. Their appeals officers' exposure to things are not the greatest. You really don't want to deal with them. You'd want to get a local appeals officer, somebody not at a campus.
Got it. Okay, now something you mentioned is, should you record your audit?
Yeah.
So you have the right to do that?
Oh, yeah, you can.
Do you have to give them a notice first, obviously?
You give them notice, and you're going to, hey, look, I'm going to tape record the audit. Okay, and you can do it. And this is a big thing people want to know. Like, I really should protect myself, right? So I'm going to give some surprising advice. I've just said, hey, shut up, dummy. Be careful. They're not on your side. Now, surprisingly, I'm going to tell you, you probably don't want to record your audit. because things can go in your favor sometimes too with the IRS. That somebody's, the agent's going to look at that. They're doing a risk assessment, as they always do, to say, okay, is this really going to be worth it? There might be a favorable treatment. They could kind of say, well, look, I'm willing to do this if you can do this. If it's being recorded, they're not going to say, I'm willing to do this if you do this.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say, you're creating a hostile environment.
Yes.
Even though it is a hostile environment, it is hostile. They're investigating you of your personal affairs, everything. This is a nasty, nasty experience for you. And for you to come back and be nasty, now you've upset this auditor who's just on the side of truth and justice. You've made this very hostile, and now they know it's like you're going to be a problem, aren't you?
I feel like the IRS agent is a little porcupine, and his little quills are down.
Yeah.
And he looks soft, like you could
Yeah.
pet him. And then you are like, hey, can I record this? And his quills go,
Yep.
sure you can record this.
And now you're going to be identified as a problem. His supervisor is going to know, his or her, and they're going to watch this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Watch this guy. Take a real hard look at him. Why the hell is he doing this? And I haven't run across I've never done an audit where I said, geez, I wish I recorded that.
Oh, wow. Good to
Geez,
know.
I really did. Now, have I run across audits where a CPA or a taxpayer represented themselves and I said, Jesus, I wish this thing was recorded? Yes, I have. Because, this is what happens when the CPA who did your return is representing in your audit. That's a conflict of interest. That really is. They really can be saying things and leading the IRS down a way where, like, man, I really wish I knew what was said.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know. And then also when a taxpayer is representing themselves, again, they're like, I didn't say that at all. I didn't say that at all. Why did they say that? Well, they thought they heard it. And it's, again, that language thing. They thought they heard something, and then they put it back into their own words. And so when you have somebody, a lawyer say, okay, let's clarify what we meant by this. You can read their body language when they're jumping to a conclusion. Hang on a second. So what we meant by this was that he knew completely about the form. He just needed a little time, and he didn't realize the significance that this would lead to this. He didn't know that the time was that sensitive. That is the way to explain it, as opposed to, I just wasn't going to do it.
I didn't have the time.
I didn't have the time for you.
bother.
I didn't have the time for you, IRS. We always have the time. We love being in compliance. There's nothing more we love than being in compliance.
We just, on Saturday nights, we get into compliance. Just for fun. Yeah. All right. So your right to silence, what is that, and should you invoke it?
Well, you do have the right to shut up about everything. If you don't want to cooperate with an audit, people don't. Mm-hmm. Then the IRS does the audit without you. And they send you a bill, and then they're going to go ahead and enforce it. If you want to challenge the audit, you're going to have to open your mouth to say, this is what's wrong about it. Now, they're not supposed to use what you say in an audit for criminal charges. They're not supposed to, but audits do lead to criminal referrals.
Okay.
They do, which will start the investigation of things that, the investigators will start saying. Typically, you don't see auditors testifying in a criminal trial unless it's an auditor who wasn't involved in the case explaining, okay, this is where the assessment numbers came up, but it was not the person who talked to the taxpayer. Mm-hmm. So there is, it's sort of, the federal government's going to take care of the federal government first. It's completely invasive because it's like, well, why is it that what you can say can be used against you if they're going to take your money, right? But if you're going to go to prison, then it can't be used against you. But if they're just going to take your money and make your life miserable, then it can be.
Yeah.
It's civil. That's what they say. It's civil. It's like, this is not civil.
No, it's not.
No, do you know what that word means? Right.
A couple great hints I had read online. There's no such thing as idle conversation with a person from the IRS. Don't chatter or exchange casual conversation. Each comment will only give them basically more ammo. So, if you've got a really good agent, he's just going to start BSing. He's going to be your buddy off the bat, maybe, because the more comfortable you are with him, the more likely you are to say something.
It's, not just with auditors, but with revenue officers. These guys are the brilliant ones. They're the brilliant ones who are, totally reasonable guy. Hey, it was great. We were able to work out a settlement. And, we didn't need to get all those lawyers involved, because look, anything we're going to pay to the lawyer, we just have to pay to the IRS again. So real reasonable guy, real reasonable, we're able to work something out together. And then what happens? Oh, the deal's not sustainable. It actually didn't solve the problem, went backwards. That person led you down a road and you paid back more than you could afford. And now where are you?
He's not your buddy at all.
He's not your
He's not
buddy.
your buddy.
I mean, they're there to take your stuff.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to audits on businesses, the IRS often wants to do this audit at your place of business, which is a nice way for them to get in the door, see what's happening, see what everything looks like. Maybe you're more comfortable there, more likely to talk. I saw it referred to as a fishing expedition.
That is what, yeah, and I think that's really it. You're more comfortable. This is your home turf, so you think you have the advantage. No.
And it's your right to say, no, let's do it at the IRS office, or let's do it,
We do it in
my attorney's office.
You're right, and that's what we'll do. Sometimes we do them over the phone too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we'll do them over the phone. Like, well, what do you want to talk about? The client may or may not be on the phone. We're like, well, why do you need to talk to the client? You don't need to.
True.
What's the question you have for him? I'll get you the answer. You can do that. So that's also the other thing too is, if I'm under audit, I don't want to deal with the IRS for myself.
No.
I don't even want to be there. I want someone else. I'm paying someone else not to deal with this nightmare, not to have this incredible pressure. And even people, I have nothing to hide. It was the most stressful thing of my life. I had nothing to hide, but it was terrible. And it's, because you don't know what they're going to come up with. You don't know. You don't know what they're going to think. Oh, they see this and this, and they're assuming something that's just simply not true.
All right. So I'd say bottom line here is sort of what we started with. Never voluntarily tell the IRS anything. Don't give them anything they haven't asked for.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to understand that it's a complete risk. If you are, there's a certain percentage of the population. This is what people need to know. There's a very small segment of the population that is involved in the criminal
Activity.
system.
Yep.
Okay. And if you're involved in the criminal system, the chances are your record is pages and pages long. Okay. It's rare when you're representing somebody in court that says somebody comes in the court, they're 35 years old, you're talking to the prosecutor, and they're like, well, this is their first offense. They're going to look up, they're going to drop their pencil, then they'll say, well, why are they here? That is, you are the one who's sticking out. If you don't have a prior record, you look strange when you're in court.
Wow.
Because who's in court are the repeats.
Right.
The same old faces. Okay, I swear this time, blah, blah, blah. That is, so for most people, they might have 1 or 0 experience in the criminal law. They're not at risk for criminal prosecution. It's just not going to happen. Mm-hmm. Where they are at risk is with the IRS. This is their biggest threat. This is the biggest legal threat in their life that is ongoing. And the more money you make, the more likely it will be a threat. That's what you need to know. And that, yes, the criminal charges can spring from that. That is far more likely. And I mean, the people who are charged, it's really random who's charged with tax evasion. Just, stupid things said, and then professionals lying about things to cover their own ass. That happens too.
Yep.
The IRS says what they want. This person said, oh, he wanted to do this, this, and this. Completely made up. Doesn't matter.
Was that Beanie Baby guy?
I can't comment on that. I don't know for sure.
If you Google that, there's some interesting
I think there's
articles.
something interesting about the Beanie Baby guy, Ty Warner. We did talk about this before, right?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
I already said this, yeah.
Oh, there's articles all over the place.
Yeah, so Ty Warner's attorney was the one who set up the entire structure. He also represented him in a criminal trial.
Probably
And
not
then
the best
when
idea.
Ty Warner pleads guilty for that charge, he is now frustrated from bringing a malpractice claim against that attorney who advised him to do all his things. He was like, I didn't know anything about these offshore accounts that I failed to set up correctly, because Ty Warner has no interest in evading taxes because he's got more money.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not
he's
an
a
IRS
genius.
expert.
He made bean
Filled
animals. Billions of dollars. A genius. Right.
Yep.
And so he's just trusting. And so this guy, I mean, really, I mean, just disgusting. And of course, the court, Department of Justice knew full well, we're going to get a great press release because this guy's he's going to twist his client's arm and then I was just reading his contrition. Oh, Ty's going into 4 years. He went in for 4 freaking years. Mm-hmm. Hired the wrong attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, and he felt guilty about it too. I read at sentencing, he was, oh yeah, I just, did a lot of wrong things. And that's one thing, I think I want to leave people with this.
Okay.
People want to get things off their chest. The need for confession. You know, confession is good for the soul, right? You need to get something off yourself and come clean. And people get this mistaken idea that you should come clean to the IRS, that you need to clear your soul. Now, you need to be in compliance. I'm not saying that, but you need to go further. You need to come clean with your soul and confess all of your sins to the IRS, who are basically like pedophiles. I mean, that's really it. They are the pedophiles. These guys are creeps. What they're doing is completely nasty. It's not voluntary. They're not asking you for your money. They're saying, man,
here's the law.
Here it is. And we got the guns to back it up. We got a whole Federal Bureau of Prisons where you're going to go if you don't do it. And if we don't even put you in prison, we could put you in a psychological prison where we levy your assets, lien you just for the hell of it. So that's what you need to know. This is not your priest. The IRS is not your psychologist. It's not your spouse. It's not your buddy. It's not your pal. It's a horrible organization that you at least have to put on the veneer that you actually respect them. Pretend you do and act that way. And deep inside, you'll know they're evil. That's my
And keep
advice.
your mouth shut as much as you can.
Oh, God, yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining Parental Advisory, hosted by Anthony Parent, produced by Claudine Gindel, that's me, engineered by Chris Chen. For more podcasts, visit our website at parentaladvisoryshow.com and like us on Facebook to submit story ideas. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IRSMedic.com, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.